A very good morning and welcome to ET Now. You're watching Market Cafe with me, Kanishka, Sarkar and Ankur Mishra. Well, Ankur, after 18 years, that dream has finally come true for RCB.
Sir, definitely, Kanishka. Now, finally, RCB has lifted the cup after 18 years. But before we start, which team were you supporting?
Wow, we'll discuss it after this.
So, 18 years, one team, one dream, and tonight, under the lights and roaring skies, that dream finally came true, and that happened yesterday night. Royal Challengers Bengaluru, once the Heartbreak Kings, are now champions of IPL. And amidst all the glory, for over 18 seasons, the jersey number 18 stood tallest. The heart of the franchisee, the king Virat Kohli, the man who carried this franchise's hope year after year, and when the final moment came, he didn't roar, he cried. Tears of joy, of fulfillment, of a promise kept, and a journey completed, of heartbreaks rewritten into history. Every chant of A Sala Cup Naam De finally became A Sala Cup Naam Do. June 3, 2025 will be etched forever. All of those memories, all the hard work, the wait has finally been completed into the wee hours of the morning. What a season it has been for them. Finished number 2 but ended up as number 1. And at long last, the Royal Challengers are no longer challengers. They are the champions finally. But Kanishka, as we were discussing, were you actually rooting for RCB or were you on the other side?
I'm actually not a big cricket fan, but definitely RCB it had to be because, finally that 18-year wait is over. Even though I don't follow cricket so much, have been hearing about it, throughout these years. And which team were you supporting, by the way?
Yes, of course, RCB, and finally that moment has come. But also there was celebration in US market, Kanishka. How were the cues from US yesterday?
That's right. In fact, we saw a very strong rally on Wall Street last night. The S&P 500 rose fueled by strong gains in AI leader Nvidia as investors anticipated details on potential US trade deals. The broad market index added about 0.5% overnight, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average that gained over 200% or about 0.5% there. Whereas the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite that rose almost 1%, that is 0.81%. Now, Nvidia, along with other chip stocks like that helped drive this rally that came on Wall Street. Now, the dominant maker of artificial intelligence chips, that is Nvidia, advanced nearly 3%, extending Monday's gains that it saw and passing Microsoft in the market cap for the first time since January. Meanwhile, others like Broadcom and Micron Technology rose more than 3% and more than 4% respectively. Apart from that, CrowdStrike shares fell about 5% in extended trading on Tuesday after the security software maker issued a weaker than expected revenue forecast. However, these moves followed the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development cutting its US growth outlook. Now, the OECD now sees the US economy expanding by just 1.6% in 2025. That's down from its earlier forecast of 2.2%. Now, remember, tariffs and policy uncertainty were among the key factors that they've cited explaining the reduction in their forecast. Nonetheless, overall a strong upside seen on Wall Street overnight. But how are things looking on the crude front, Ankur?
Crude is holding steady, in fact still on 3 weeks high. If you talk about Brent crude that was trading above $65 and WTI around $63. Why it has happened? Because American Petroleum Institute reported stockpiles fell by 3.28 barrels last week, and after this data and also the meeting which has happened last week, crude is actually trading above $63 if you talk about WTI.
That's right. Now let's get talking about the forecast that I was mentioning earlier. Now the OECD has sharply cut its US growth forecast, like I mentioned, warning that the Trump-era tariffs and policy uncertainty are dragging down the global outlook. It now sees US growth at just 1.6% this year, down from the earlier projections. Now, global GDP, that is also expected to slow to 2.9% in both 2025 as well as 2026. Now, the report flags that trade barriers, tighter financial conditions and weaker confidence as major risks clouding the economic horizon.
And if you talk about Nvidia, that has reclaimed its crown as the world's most valuable company, overtaking Microsoft with a market cap of more than $3.45 trillion. Fueled by soaring demand for the AI chips powering tools like ChatGPT, it's now up 24% in 1 month alone. Shrugging off export and tariff headwinds, which were there earlier, the chip maker last held the top spot in January and continues the trade places with tech giants Apple and Microsoft.
That's right. Now shifting focus to China then. Now global alarm is rising as China's export ban on critical minerals takes effect. This threatens auto production worldwide. Now, German car makers are warning of factory halts, joining a chorus of US and Indian firms hit by rare earth shortages. Now, this move tightens China's grip on supply chains for EVs, semiconductors, and also defense tech, just as President Xi Jinping and US President Trump are expected to talk this week amid an escalating trade war especially between these two countries.
And moving on, Elon Musk is slamming Donald Trump's massive tax and spending bill, calling it disgusting abomination that worsens America's $36 trillion debt. Musk's fiery post triggered support from deficit hawks who worry for the bill's $3.8 trillion cost is unsustainable now. Senate revisions from the Trump's defense the bill, and the White House brushes off Musk's criticism.
That's right. Moving on to some auto updates now. Now, Ford and Hyundai have posted strong US sales in May as buyers rush to grab SUVs and trucks ahead of possible tariff-driven price hikes. Now, Ford sales surged 16% to over 220,000 units, led by a 15% jump in F-Series truck sales. Hyundai, on the other hand, logged an 8% gain boosted by pickups and crossovers. Now, both the car makers cited consumer urgency amid tariff uncertainty, though Hyundai says that no immediate price hikes are planned as of yet.
And South Korea has a new president now. Opposition leader Lee Jae-myung clinched victory in a snap election with 49.4% of the vote, defeating conservative Kim Moon-soo. The vote follows months of political upheaval after the former president Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached over a failed martial law attempt. Lee now takes the reins of key issues from trade ties with US to managing relations with China and North Korea.
That's right. Now moving on, Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof has stepped down after far-right leader Geert Wilders pulled his Party for Freedom out of the ruling coalition. Now the exit came after tensions over immigration policy, with Wilders accusing the alliance of rejecting his hardline asylum proposals.
Satellite images have now confirmed Ukraine's June 1 drone assault that destroyed and damaged multiple Russian bombers at air bases deep inside Siberia. Analysts call it one of the most effective strikes of the war. Meanwhile, power has been restored to 7 lakh in Russian-held Ukraine after massive strikes took out substations, marking the largest blackout in occupied zones to date.
That's right. We also have updates coming on the EU FTA. Now, India and the EU are inching forward on a free trade agreement, but carbon taxes remain a flashpoint. Now, exclusive sources have told us that the EU has acknowledged India's concerns over the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which could hit key exports like steel and cement. Now, remember, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal is in Europe pushing for a phased deal by 2025. Sumita is here with all the details.
Yes, the latest round of India-EU negotiations got concluded on May 16th, and we're given to understand that the EU team, the EU trade team, the negotiating team which was here in India, it recognizes India's concerns around carbon tax levy on imports. Remember, those concerns have been raised earlier in negotiations and they came up during talks this time around as well. Well, the EU is looking to simplify carbon border exchange mechanism, or CBAM. The EU has recognized India's SME and industry concerns over CBAM compliance. In fact, we're given to understand from sources that the EU thinks that a cooperative element clause could be added for Indian industry, given that it's difficult to understand CBAM under FTA. In fact, the CBAM issue goes way beyond FTA's negotiating capacities. What we're given to understand from sources is what the EU trade team told negotiators on the Indian side, and hence they're working on potential adjustments. And that will likely give SMEs transparency and legal security. Now, if this simplified mechanism is brought in place, it will give relief for steel, aluminum, iron ore, cement and fertilizer sectors. But what is CBAM? Well, that's a regulation that's been put in place to put a fair price on carbon-intensive goods that are imported from non-EU countries, and it seeks to lower greenhouse gas emissions. Remember, India and the European Union are looking at a trade deal to get finalized by the end of this year. It could likely be in 2 phases. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal is currently in Europe. He's holding talks with French, Italian and EU representatives, as both sides in fact, the European side and Indian side are aiming to boost trade and investment ties.
Thanks, Amita, for those details. Now shifting focus to Delhi. Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta has announced a major move to fight pollution in the national capital. The Delhi government has launched the Air Pollution Mitigation Plan 2025. Delhi CM has planned that from November 1st, only BS6, CNG or electrical commercial vehicles will be allowed to enter the city. ANPR cameras will be installed at the all entry points to track compliance. Let's listen into what Delhi CM Rekha Gupta had to say.
कुछ और चीजें इलेक्ट्रिक पॉलिसी के साथ साथ जो करने जा रहे हैं, तो दिल्ली की जितने एंट्री पॉइंट है इस पे हम ANPR यानी ऑटोमेटिक नंबर प्लेट रजिस्ट्रेशन रिकॉग्निशन कैमरे लगाएंगे, जो कि एंड ऑफ लाइफ व्हीकल को पहचान पाएंगे, और जैसे ही वो व्हीकल इन कैमरास की रेंज में आएगा तो पता चल पाएगा कि ये व्हीकल जो है पॉल्यूशन क्रिएटिंग एंड ऑफ लाइफ व्हीकल हैं, तो तुरंत उन्हें ट्रेस करके उन्हें रोका जाएगा.
All right, that's the Delhi government's latest plan to mitigate air pollution in the city. But with that, it's time to slip into a very short break. We'll be right back with more news and updates on the other side, so stay tuned.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching Market Cafe with me, Ankur, Mishra and Kanishka Sarkar. Let's take a look how Asia Pacific markets are performing. First, let's bring KOSPI on the screen because the presidential elections verdict is out and Mai Young has been elected as president. But I don't think so. The rates are updating here. The market is actually up around 2%. We'll ask PCR to check the same. But apart from that, if you see Australian market, that is also showing some kind of resilience, up around 0.5%. Apart from that, just see how Shanghai markets, that is also trading in the green territory, and overall mixed kind of cues coming in from Asian market, but led by KOSPI, and we need to wait and see which way actually China and US calls goes through, because that will determine the fate of the Asian markets next. GIFT Nifty is also showing a positive territory start as we speak. So Kanishka, looks like positive cues coming in from Asia.
That's right.
Investors and promoters are cashing out in bulk. Tuesday saw big block deals with TPG exiting Tata Tech, Flipkart, offloading ABFRL shares, and promoters trimming stakes in Alchem Labs. And this has been followed a spate of MNCs and promoters exiting a stake in the country. Sharad is joining in with all those details and trend. Sharad?
Well, it's raining deals in Dalal Street, if it be it MNCs, be it FIs, or even promoters. Today, block deals likely 3 main companies coming in. Tata Tech, likely seller would be TPG, private equity player, and it's going to be a complete trade exit, 2% stake worth almost 635 crore rupees. Alchem Labs promoter shedding 1.42% stake, around 825 crore worth of block deals likely. The promoters are having roughly 55% stake as per their March shareholding pattern. And also ABFRL, where Flipkart, there is expected to be a complete exit of 6% stake worth 600 crore rupees. Yesterday also two important blocks happened, Ola Electric and Yes Bank. There's a complete exit coming from Hyundai, exiting their 22.5% stake worth 550 crore rupees. And Yes Bank, Carlyle reducing their stake yet again 2.6%, 1775. In May last year itself, they had sold 2% stake worth almost 1440 crore rupees. And importantly, MNCs have been paring stake in their Indian arms as well. ITC, where their largest shareholder, British American Tobacco, they sold 2.7% stake worth 13,000 crore rupees last week. Also, Bharti Airtel, their parent company, Pestle, they sold almost 1.2% stake worth 13,000 crore rupees. And for Whirlpool and Hyundai, also their exits were coming from the parent arms. And Hyundai, of course, this was an IPO exit coming in via an OFS worth 28,000 crore rupees.
All right, thank you, Sharad, for all those details. And now, while we await, anticipate those block deals in the market today, let's also shift focus to the primary market. Now, SEBI has approved HDB Financial Services draft offer document for an IPO. Now, the SEBI had issued an observation letter for the IPO on May 28th. My colleague Anurag Joshi is joining us with all the details.
Yeah, so this is a HDFC Bank subsidiary and they are going to go for an IPO. Securities and Exchange Board of India has cleared the IPO plan. That is the draft offer document of HDB Financial Services, which is a lender subsidiary of HDFC Bank. HDFC Bank has an about 94% equity stake in HDB Financial Services. The market regulator had issued the observation letter on the HDB IPO plan on May 28. Now the plan is 12,500 crore rupees, and this comprises a new issue of 2,500 crore of new shares and also an offer of sale of 10,000 crore rupees by HDFC Bank. And HDFC Bank will sell the shares to the public in the IPO. And if you look at some of the banks that are managing the IPO, they include JM Financial, BNP, BOFA, GS, HSBC, IFL. So practically every major investment bank is there and has a mandate to manage this IPO. HDB Financial had filed the draft red herring prospectus with SEBI last October. And this should be one of the biggest IPOs that's coming out this year.
Shifting focus to another exclusive then, e-commerce giant Flipkart investment arm is planning to sell its entire stake in Aditya Birla Fashion Retail. My colleague Anurag Joshi is still standing by with more details on this story.
Flipkart Investment plans to sell its entire about 6% equity stake in Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail through a secondary sale. Flipkart will sell 73.2 million shares via a bulk sale, and this will be at a offer floor price of 79.5 rupees a share, which is at about a 7.6% discount to the last closing price. The book is opening on June 3 and it closes on June 4. Goldman Sachs is the sole book runner for the sale plan. This sale comes amid a flurry of sale by promoters and shareholders in various companies, as bounce in the local equity markets has helped the shareholders monetize their holdings through block deals.
All right, thank you, Anurag, for getting us all those details. Now, let's shift focus to the aviation sector. Now, days after Prime Minister Modi called for making India a global aviation hub, Indigo CEO Peter Elbers spoke about the opportunities that lie in the Indian aviation sector. Let's listen in.
Well, I think the big message from this AGM is India, this is India's time, and the scale and potential and opportunity of India has been a beautiful opportunity here to showcase that to the rest of the world. And I think with the support of the Indian government and the strong commitment, not only in words, but even more so in presence and in actual steps being taken, and outlining the vision of the Honourable Prime Minister and outlining all the steps and the opportunities which are out there, I think it has been very successful in showcasing that to the rest of the world. India, basically, we have seen an enormous growth of the domestic market. The opportunity for the international market is even more. And as I shared in my presentation, India is geographically wonderfully located. 60 to 65% of the world population lives within a range of 5 to 6 hours flying from India. And that includes indeed Southeast Asia. So if you look at that opportunity of new flights and more connections between India and Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore, the opportunity, I would say, is massive going forward.
Moving on, Madras High Court has actually upheld the regulations brought in by Tamil Nadu government, imposing a night ban and mandating Aadhaar-based KYC verification for playing online real money games. Nivedna Prabhu is joining in with more details.
In a significant development, the Madras High Court has upheld the regulations brought in by the Tamil Nadu government, imposing a night ban and mandating the Aadhaar-based KYC verification for playing online real money games. Now, this is clearly a setback for a sector that's already facing a turbulent period. But as far as the case is concerned, let's tell you, the bench of Justice S.M. Subramaniam and Justice K. Rajashekar dismissed the petitions filed by a group of online companies and players. Now, the bench, in fact, said that apart from a parental point, the state had gone one step further to protect the health and well-being of its citizens, which was a reasonable restriction. While hearing the case, the court said, in the eyes of the court, the submission put forth by the state is not restricted to just paternalism, but goes a step beyond in ensuring that the physical, mental and well-being of its citizens, which is incumbent duty to protect. A more important factors while hearing the case, what was noted by the court is that other aspects, including the impetus on health and welfare of the citizens, also form the spine of our constitution. Now, let's also tell you, given this particular case, though the companies had argued on the aspect of right to privacy, the court has rejected those arguments. It said the right to privacy comes with its own restrictions. Now, remember, as far as this matter is concerned, RMG firms had approached the Madras High Court in the month of February this particular year, after Tamil Nadu had notified a set of state-specific regulations that introduce time as well as usage curbs on real money game platforms.
All right, then I cannot help but shift focus back to the IPL. Now, 18 years, one team and one dream. And last night, under the lights and roaring skies, that dream finally came true. The Royal Challengers Bengaluru, once the Heartbreak Kings, are now the champions of the IPL. Amidst all this glory, for over 18 seasons, the jersey number 18 stood tallest. The heart of the franchisee, the king, Virat Kohli. Now, the man who carried this franchisee's hopes year after year. And when the final moment came, he didn't roar. He cried. Tears of joy, of fulfillment, of a promise kept, a journey completed, of heartbreaks rewritten into history. Now, every chant of A Sala Cup Namde finally became A Sala Cup Namdu. June 3rd, 2025 will forever be etched as the wait has finally been long over, one to savor into the wee hours of the morning. What a season it has been for them. Now, finished not as number 2, but ended as number 1. And at long last, the Royal Challengers are no longer challengers, they are the champions. Now, let's go across to Karishma, who was present at the Narendra Modi Stadium last night for the IPL final, to get us a mood check of what it was like last night.
The 18-year wait for RCB fans is over. They finally won the IPL trophy. IPL 2025. Virat Kohli has won the IPL trophy. He is here right outside the Narendra Modi Stadium. And you can see the excitement here, the happiness here. They are just RCB, RCB, RCB. आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी, विराट कोहली की आंखों में अभी आंसू थे, क्या कहेंगे?
18 साल का इमोशन था, 18 साल से सुनना पड़ा था जीरो ट्रॉफी जीरो ट्रॉफी। आप साले चेन्नई वाले मुंबई वाले आप
क्या कहना चाहोगे मुंबई आरसीबी के लिए?
बोला था ना 18 नंबर जर्सी
18 number jersey is what everyone is talking about. What everyone is. The RCB chants are not going to stop anytime soon. Whether it's Ahmedabad or back in Bangalore as well. These are all RCB fans.
आरसीबी। आज की मैच बहुत ही अच्छी गई। हमने कभी सपने में भी नहीं सोचा था इस बार आरसीबी जीतेगी और इस बार आरसीबी जीत गई। आरसीबी विन हुए, हमें बहुत खुशी हुई है। 18 साल से
that everyone is talking about. What would you want to say? Are you happy today RCB has won?
Very happy, very happy.
Very happy that RCB has won today.
18वां सीजन 18 बारी है आरसीबी।
Everyone that's walking into our camera is just talking about RCB. This being the 18th season, Virat Kohli being the 18th number and winning IPL trophy, IPL 2025. I don't think these IPL chants are going to stop anytime soon. What happens in Bangalore is what we are going to see, and this is something that will be very, very interesting and exciting to see.
Thanks, Karishma, for those updates, and we can see the emotions will continue for a while for RCB fans. With this, it's time to take a quick break in this edition of Market Cafe, but don't go away. We'll bring you more news and updates that matters before opening of market.
Welcome back to ET Now. You're watching Market Cafe with me, Kanishka, Sarkar and Ankur Mishra. Now shifting our focus back to markets, Now speaking of milestones, it's been a roller coaster of a year since Prime Minister Modi took charge for the third time. And even though the narrative has been that FIIs favor the current administration, they remain largely on the edge, with benchmarks notching just single-digit gains since the less than enthusiastic verdict last year. Sharad is joining us with all the details and the market trend that followed.
It's been 1 year since the results of the Lok Sabha election has come in. This is the third time for PM Narendra Modi coming out. But let's see how the overall markets have actually fared. And Sensex is up 6%, Nifty almost 6%. Mid cap, small cap, they have done well, largely mid cap. Interestingly, Dow Jones, that has done well, almost 10% up if you compare it overall. Also, there are other indices, also global indices, which you'd like to point out. DAX, Nasdaq. That is where the momentum has been very strong, and markets, if you look at it segment wise, IT segment has performed really well. On the losing end, auto segment, metal, PSE, they're falling between 3 to 12%, and of course banking and FMCG names still holding up. Mid cap, small cap indices also doing pretty well. Of course, the Nifty gainers, if you look at it, HDFC Life, Zomato, Bharti Airtel, and do remember Zomato has recently entered in the Nifty index, but still, nevertheless, a strong momentum happening in the stock. Top losers, IndusInd Bank, Adani Enterprise and Tata Motors is something which you will be looking out for in Modi 3.0. Also making it to the list is Bajaj Finance and Shriram Finance. That's the top 5 gainers coming in, and Coal India and Asian Paints also making it to this list. So this is the overall performance segment wise, Nifty stocks and global stocks when it comes to Modi 3.0. Thanks, Sharad, for those details. Moving on, Tata Motors is charging ahead in the EV race with a bang. The auto giant is just launched electric version of its popular SUV, the Harrier, starting at rupees 21.49 lakhs. Speaking exclusively to ET Now, the management is confident that Harrier EV isn't just a launch, it's set to be true game changer for the company. Plug in and listen into what makes this EV a potential market disruptor.
Yeah, so when we were conceptualizing Harrier EV as to what it should offer to the customer, what different it should offer in the high SUV segment, because this is a big segment now, selling about 25,000 cars in the ICE world. And when we saw the customer, who were buying these cars, it came out that these customers are typically an upgrader who would have owned two, three cars in the past, and they are very discerning and sophisticated. They are upgrading themselves for more superior performance, refinement, comfort and convenience, and getting a sense of upgrade by getting the latest technology features in the cars. I said, if this is the requirement, why we don't take it to a level which is completely different, using electric as the technology, which can deliver significantly superior performance. So on top of that, talking about the electric part, because it is electric car, it delivers, because it's a pure EV architecture, it is able to house a big battery pack of 75 kilowatt hour, and it is able to therefore deliver 500 kilometer plus range. The charging speeds are very fast, 250 kilometer you can top in just 15 minutes. It has taken away all the barriers of electrification also. That's why any customer who is thinking of buying a car between 20 lakh and beyond, say in the 10-15 lakh zone, they should actively consider this car, which gives you very different experience and a much superior performance and comfort.
Right. But the tagline here is also delete impossible, and this is the first high SUV in the EV offering from Tata Motors. So my question here is, what are some things that people wouldn't put EV and a high SUV in the same sentence for, that the Harrier makes it possible?
Its ability to do, off-road capability with, 10 different kind of modes that are given, right? That also makes it very capable of, this vehicle becomes very capable to go on any road, and with confidence, because here the torque delivery is constant. Much.
All right, then Tata Motors' latest offering, Harrier EV, is out, and the management believes it could be a market disruptor. But let's keep it with the auto space. Now, we are also learning from sources that Tesla India has leased land in Mumbai's Kurla West region for a period of 5 years. Sameer is here with all the details regarding that.
The global EV giant Tesla has taken another step, which is considered probably as a step closer to its long-awaited India entry. Tesla has signed a lease agreement for a premium commercial space in Mumbai, and which is considered as the first warehouse facility of Tesla in the country. So as per the document assessed by CRE Metrics, which is a real estate data analytics firm, it has mentioned that this lease agreement is of a premium space in Mumbai, and the area spans of around 24,565 square feet at Lodha Logistic Park, which is situated in Kurla West, Mumbai. The lease agreement, it commences from the 20th of April 2025, whereas the rent agreement commences from the 1st of June 2025. So the lease agreement is for 5 years, and initially it is rent-free fit-out as per the agreement. When it comes to the rental or the price of this lease agreement, the document mentions that this lease is pegged at 37.53 lakh, and which equates to rupees 153 per square feet. So that's the price that Tesla has agreed to pay for the leased property. And in addition to this, let me tell you that this is not the first property that has been leased by Tesla. Another property which was leased by Tesla in Mumbai, it was almost a year back. Even in Pune, Tesla has also leased one of the properties. So with this sort of property taken on lease by Tesla, that is marked as a step closer to the global EV giant entry in India. But in addition to this, that is also to be noted that H.D. Kumaraswamy, the union minister, has mentioned that Tesla has not shown any plans to invest in India in the manufacturing setup. So Tesla is more keen to have showrooms in India, to have warehouse facility in India, and then they are planning to sell their cars or the products in India. But as of now, they are not very keen to invest in India when it comes to the manufacturing unit.
All right, shifting focus from auto to defense now, Rajesh Kumar Singh, Defense Secretary, sees sustained growth in the defense space on the back of domestic manufacturing and import tech. He also talks about budget allocation for modernization of sector for the next year. Let's listen into what he had to say in the exclusive conversation.
In my view, that the defense sector will see sustained growth on the back of domestic industrialization, complemented by a small quantum of cutting-edge technology that we may have to import from outside. So the next year's budget is, I think the modernization budget alone, which is the capex, is about 1,80,000 crores. India will be spending between $20 to $25 billion per annum for the next decade, if not more, on its modernization budget. At the institutional level, I would say that we need to work on ease of doing business. We need to ensure that the defense industry really suffers from the license permit Raj, and to some extent it cannot be avoided. You cannot produce lethal weaponry without having even a license. You can't delicense these sectors, but you can make it happen faster. We have to ensure that our procurement processes give them an equal access when it comes to orders. That, as I said, I've already committed that we will be ensuring that nomination-based allocations of orders to the public sector will be a thing of the past. We will increasingly go for competitive bidding across all platforms.
All right, then moving on, let me get you the latest on tariffs yet again. Now, in yet another threat, US President Donald Trump is planning to hike steel and aluminum tariffs. Now, let's go across to Ashesha, who's getting us more details.
Well, yes, US President Donald Trump has signed the executive order to increase tariffs on import of steel and aluminium to 50% now from 25% earlier. This will come into effect today on the 4th of June. Remember, it was just in the month of February when Donald Trump had increased tariffs from 10 to 25%, and now it has been doubled from 25% to 50% now. Now they say increased tariffs will reduce or eliminate the national security threat posed by imports of steel and aluminium articles and their derivative products, and this is largely to protect Americans' domestic steel and aluminium industry. Now, if we look at the total demand supply dynamics and the impact it will have on global steel and aluminium market, Morgan Stanley says UK imports about 17% of its steel requirements. Canada, Brazil, Mexico and South Korea are the major countries which export steel to the United States. As far as aluminium is concerned, Canada contributes nearly 79% imports of aluminium into US, and as far as impact on US is concerned, remember, construction industry is likely to be negatively impacted on account of surge in prices that is expected to happen on account of imposition of tariffs. Now back home, as far as impact on India is concerned, remember, we are not likely to be impacted majorly, and this because we do export to the United States both steel and aluminium, but the quantum is limited, but the supply of steel and aluminium in global market is likely to increase. Remember, US will practically be locked for any other steel and aluminium that is being exported by any other country, which means supply is likely to increase. This could put pressure on steel and aluminium prices in the domestic market back home. So yes, we could see some kind of negative impact in terms of prices, but for now, big announcement coming in for the entire steel and aluminium ecosystem globally.
Thanks, Ashesha, for those details. Now, this is something which will be watched out globally, but let's move on to domestic market, where Ravinder is standing by to tell you which are the stocks to watch and that will be in action in trade today.
Well, as Wipro can be in focus, where company has won a multi-year deal with Interest to drive growth through scalable AI power tech services. Moving to Zydus Lifesciences can also be in focus, where Zydus Lifesciences Arms has acquired stake in Agnes, expanding its immuno-oncology pipeline and global reach, and company will acquire 5.9% stake in Agnes with an approx value of $16 million. Apart from this, on back of order win, Ashok Leyland can be in focus, where company has bagged an order for supplying of 543 BSVI diesel chassis and fully built buses to Tamil Nadu State Corporation, and the size of the order is 183.8 crore. Apart from this, Sun Pharma can be in focus, where Sun Pharma's experimental drug SCD-044 did not meet its main goals in phase 2 trials for psoriasis and atopic dermatitis. The company has decided to discontinue further development. Apart from this, Yes Bank can be in focus, where board has approved fundraising of rupees 7,500 crore and 8,500 crore via debt. So total fundraising, so board approved total fundraising of 16,000 crore. And lastly, NMDC can be in focus, where NMDC cut lumpur prices by rupees 140 per ton and fine prices by 150 per ton, which is effective by today. And lump company has set lump price at rupees 6,000 per ton and fine prices at 5,350 per ton. So back of this, NMDC can be in focus.
All right, thanks Rabinder for that update, and also shift focus to Asian markets once again. In fact, in Asia Pacific market, we can see there is a green all around. Look at how Australian markets are performing, up around 0.75%. Why this has happened? Because there were minutes of Reserve Bank of Australia which were released, and in that it was clearly mentioned in the month of May more rate cut was weighed upon, and finally the decision was made. As you can see, the market trading in positive territory. Also bring in Hang Seng and Shanghai on the screen, that is also trading in the green territory as we speak. Yeah, you can see Hang Seng is trading 0.6% up, and Shanghai is also opened in the positive territory with 11 points up and 0.3% upside as we speak. But the biggest gain is coming in from KOSPI, where presidential election verdict, I would want this rates not to be shown on the screen, because actually there is some technical glitch where we cannot show you, but more than 2% upside on market is there in KOSPI after the presidential election verdict is there. So that is leading the Asian pack in the Asian Pacific market. But even Nifty implied open is taking positive cues and 48 points up as we speak. So all in all, it is green all around, and we may see a positive start today in the market.
That's right. While we are awaiting that positive start to the markets, we have to agree that global markets continue to grapple with some kind of uncertainty. However, Morgan Stanley is doubling down on India. Now, top strategists Ridham Desai and Chaitanya Haya, they've called India an oasis in a desert, backed by solid macro fundamentals, rising capex and a resilient services sector. Here's why the investment giant remains bullish on India's growth story. Let's take a look.
If you do a little bit more intrinsic valuation, stocks are cheap. And this is not something that people outside India have completely understood, which is why they are underweight. I think India is in this, is what I term as the oasis in a desert. I suspect as we go into the second half and beyond that, and there is some stability in US policy, corporate issuances will pick up. And that will give an opportunity for foreign investors to continue to engage in Indian stock markets.
India is relatively insulated to the extent to which its exposure to global goods trade cycle is much lower than everybody else. And at the same time, it has this structural domestic demand story, which is also much stronger than the rest of the region. And if you see the trajectory of Indian government, both center plus states taken together, revenue expenditure versus capital expenditure, both the lines are moving in the right direction. Over the last 5 years, we've seen a consistent decline in revenue expenditure to GDP, and that has been taken as an opportunity by the government to increase its capital expenditure to GDP.
The global macro is actually more challenging than it has been for India in a long time. China is facing deflation pressures and will export its deflation to the rest of the world, and that may bring some problem for Indian exporters. The US is going through its tariff stuff, which is, I think, definitely hurting US growth. Our US growth forecasts suggest that US growth will be half of what it was last year. It's not just the tariff thing, but also what goes through with immigration. We're expecting immigration to drop considerably in 2025 and then again in 2026. And it will act as a drag to US growth, may actually bring a wage inflation back into the fore, and may create supply side challenges for America. So this is the reason why the Morgan Stanley view is that US growth slows down perceptibly this year and next year, but the Fed will be reluctant to act because inflation will be quite elevated. And that is the template that we're dealing with. It's not a very happy template for stock markets. India, of course, is, I think, going to behave idiosyncratically and very differently, and will likely outperform a global environment like this.
it could have been even a constraint for Asian central banks to cut rates to the extent to which the Fed is still on hold. But I think the most important driver to a region's central bank's policy thinking is what is happening to the dollar. So in 2018, when tariffs were imposed, you had seen that dollar was rising. And even while tariffs were deflationary for the region, like it is right now, and causes a slowdown in growth, central banks were having to hold back their rate cuts until the time that the Fed started to begin thinking about taking up its own rate cuts. But in this cycle, to the extent to which the dollar has been weakening, Asian central banks have been going ahead and cutting interest rates. And just by the fact that investors are outside of US thinking about hedging their exposure to the US by way of concerns on weakening dollar, that's actually causing further weakness in the dollar and giving some support to the capital inflow into rest of the world as well, particularly Europe and Asia.
With this, it's time for a wrap in this edition of Market Cafe. On behalf of Kanishka, me and entire 18 Now team, thanks for watching, but do watch the market coming up next.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to 18 Now.